Hello out there. Welcome to Wake Up to the Bible. My name is Daniel Kaplan. I'm here with my father, Dr. Kaplan. Together, we're going through the books of the law, Genesis through Deuteronomy. We're doing a little bit every day. Today, we're going to be reading Genesis 46:28 through Genesis 47:10, and I'm going to be reading from the Robert Alter translation. And Judah he had sent before him to show him the way to Goshen, and they came to the land of Goshen. And Joseph harnessed his chariot, and went up to meet Israel his father in Goshen, and appeared before him, and fell on his neck, and he wept on his neck a long while. And Israel said to Joseph, I may die now after seeing your face, for you are still alive. And Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, Let me go up and tell Pharaoh, and let me say to him, My brothers and my father's household that was in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for they have always been handlers of livestock, and their sheep and their cattle and all that is theirs they have brought. And so when Pharaoh calls for you and says, What is it you do? You shall say, Your servants have been handlers of livestock from our youth until now, we and our fathers as well, that you may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is abhorrent to Egypt. And Joseph came and told Pharaoh and said, My father and my brothers and their flocks and their cattle and all that is theirs have come from the land of Canaan, and here they are in the land of Goshen. And from the pick of his brothers he took 5 men and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to his brothers, What is it you do? And they said to Pharaoh, Your servants are shepherds, we and our fathers as well. And they said to Pharaoh, We have come to sojourn in the land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, because the famine is grave in the land of Canaan. And so let your servants pray, dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, saying, Let them dwell in the land of Goshen, and if you know there are able men among them, make them masters of the livestock, what is mine. And Jacob and his sons had come to Egypt to Joseph, and Pharaoh king of Egypt heard. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, saying, Your father and your brothers have come to you. There's a little bit of an adjustment at the end there, which Robert Alter talks about.
Yeah, he's changed the order of some of the verses.
He changes the order, yeah. He goes with the Septuagint there.
Well, there I part company with Robert Alter.
Dun dun dun. They part as friends. But yes.
Respectful.
But yes, Robert Alter decided to adjust.
I hope he doesn't do that too much.
He doesn't. This is the first time I've ever seen him do it. So. And I've read quite a bit of it. I haven't read it cover to cover, but I've never seen it before. So, but he does highlight it. He does let you know. He doesn't just pull any fast ones on us. All right, so here we have them getting back, and you have this dramatic moment and everything with that, which is a beautiful moment there. I forgot to mention it earlier, but one nice thing about what God said is he specifically said, that Joseph was going to close the eyes of Jacob. And that's just a very beautiful moment, because it is a big fear of people to like basically die alone. And especially considering Jacob's connection with Joseph, the fact that he was given that promise was very nice.
I think if you go back and see what is said there, he implies that Jacob would be buried in the land of Canaan.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah,
it's almost a command.
Yeah,
to go back to the patriarchal tombs,
right,
where Abraham and Isaac are buried.
Yeah,
Abraham and his wife, and Isaac and his wife.
Yeah, there's another verse too. I mentioned in another one that would give the same impression. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, for sure. All right, so it is funny though that he says the first thing that they should basically reveal about themselves is what's going to put them in odds with the culture around them, which is that they raise sheep. Now, there's different interpretations as to why this is the case. Some people say that perhaps they actually didn't raise sheep and they didn't eat sheep because they had like a sheep god, and so they actually put sheep in a category. They were sacred, and so the idea that you would be raising sheep for slaughter would actually be abhorrent to them. Why are you shaking your head? These are actual historians.
Because Pharaoh said, "Watch my livestock."
That doesn't mean his livestock are sheep.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, I see. So, in other words, along with your sheep that I can't deal with, watch my.
And they may have raised
All right.
sheep for wool, but that doesn't but I think it could be that a shepherd is abhorrent because of raising it for meat. And if you think about that, if that's true, that makes the Passover lamb quite a
Well, that's a big
stab
deal.
in the heart.
That's a big deal among Orthodox Jews.
Hmm.
They tell their children that Egyptians worshiped the lamb and killing the lamb was a
See?
big
So there you
deal.
go.
Yeah, so these historians may be coming out of that kind of tradition.
It may be, they might
Yeah.
be, yeah, they might be,
It's
but
like the sacred cow in Egypt,
yeah,
the sacred sheep I mean, the sacred cow in India.
yeah.
So here's the
Yeah,
sacred
no,
sheep.
exactly. So I don't know. It's possible. It could be too that they just looked upon people that had to deal with animals in a, they had to keep them separate. There was a certain amount of
Yeah,
classism that
yeah,
it's like that's kind of beneath us. And yeah, we're going to
yeah.
eat the meat, but yeah, let's get it out of the way. Possible. That's another possible
Well,
scenario.
see, the thing of it is that when we say shepherd, that implies sheep, but the Hebrew word is a feeder of the livestock. I can go back to the Hebrew here. When they say they're shepherds, they probably said roim, which
Yeah.
means people who feed livestock. So
Yeah.
it doesn't imply sheep necessarily.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
Robert Alter's under the conclusion that there really is no evidence that shepherding was a taboo profession. So he says you have to just kind of figure it out because that, in his mind, there's no compelling evidence one way or the other as to what this claim is about. But he said, the least convoluted explanation is Egyptians who were, by and large, sedentary agriculturists and had large urban centers considered the semi nomadic herdsmen from the north as inferiors, and so preferred to keep them segregated.
that
So it's
all
kind of like they had moved beyond that, you know.
that all makes sense, and
It
also
does,
it
yeah.
also shows that uh, when when they were ruled by the Hyksos, how humiliating that would have been.
Right. That's a very good point. It's like for pride goes before a fall, right? It's that,
Well, let me just see.
or the same measure you use against somebody else will be used against you, right? It's
Are
like,
we
oh, you think they're that terrible? Well, let's just see what happens
are
about
we
that.
in 47?
We are in 47. We're up to number
Okay,
10,
and so
verse 10.
he tells them, tell them that you're shepherds.
Oh, wait a second. We're supposed to be in verse 10. I didn't read far enough.
Yea, roate sown. Yeah, roate sown could
We're going to
be
have to read a few more
could
verses. I'm
also be
sorry.
goats and other, could also be goats. Sheep and goats could be involved as well.
Yep.
Yeah, all right,
But we have a few more verses to read because I cut it off too early
all
because I
right.
was thrown off by the weird order thing. So, the land of Egypt is before you, and the best of the land settle your father and your brothers. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And Joseph brought Jacob his father and stood him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many are the days of the years of your life? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojourning are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained the days of the years of my fathers in their days of sojourning. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from Pharaoh's presence. The first thing that you can say is this is a contrast, right, to what we see with Abraham and Isaac. Abraham and Isaac, when they die, there's a sense of contentment and, you know, an ease to it. It says, they're sated with their years and things like that. And Jacob basically is, nope, I've had a pretty miserable go of it. So it's just a different sort of picture. And I think that's balanced. Again, the Bible is balanced. The Bible shows you righteous people who end up with not a cushy life, but, it's not totally just filled with heartache and sorrow, and then other people that are righteous people that have a pretty tough go of it. It's just how it is.
Well, he had 17 good years after that. He seemed to be fairly content at the end in 48 and 49.
Mm-hmm.
But
But I mean, it's just his attitude at the end. And I'm not saying that Abraham and Isaac didn't have their rough spots either. I'm just saying towards the end of his life, Jacob had a rough go of it because of all these years where he didn't have Joseph and all of that. He,
well, Isaac didn't have his eyesight for an extended period of time, but
yeah, He doesn't complain about it in the same way, though. So,
but we don't see it anyway.
that's my point. Is that the text? I'm not saying that they had a. I'm not saying they. I just mean from the narrative
Right? Yeah,
standpoint.
it's
You
interesting.
have Abraham and Isaac basically being like, I've had a good life, and Jacob is not of that attitude. He's of the attitude that he's had a rather rough life. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, there's a. I'm trying to remember where it comes out. Well, it does come out, I think, in terms of Jeremiah's scribe Baruch, but
Yeah.
basically, you're told in the Bible you're going to have an eternity as an immortal being. So, you know, don't expect that you're going to necessarily going to have an easy life before you get there. So to speak.
Interesting. Um, but it's also interesting that he says few and evil. I mean, he's
Yeah,
not that old. He's not that young. Like, and I would think even in that culture that
right.
wouldn't have been that young. So you could maybe perhaps say that Jacob's being a little bit over dramatic. um,
That seems to be his style of
it seems to
rhetoric.
be his style of rhetoric. Yeah, he
But
could
but
be a little bit over the top.
but he did have a sense that now that he has seen Joseph, his life was drawing to a close. Because how would he know? I mean,
Few are the years of my life.
he
Yeah,
had 17 more years, but
yeah.
so he did know that he was in the wind down phase, I
Yeah.
guess, and he wasn't
Well,
gonna.
if you want to talk about dramatic, I mean, he says the years of my sojournings are 130 years. What is he talking about? He's not 130 years old, is he?
Yeah,
Well, then
he
he
dies at
was
147.
sojourning as a baby. Like, isn't that a bit much?
Well, he
You know what I mean?
well he
Like,
was sojourning with his
I
family.
understand that, but it does seem a little dramatic, doesn't it? When you start putting it that way, and it's not even like as an adult. It's like I've just been miserable from the moment I took my first
Well,
breath.
you're overdoing. Now you're
You don't think
overdoing
so?
it.
I don't know.
No, you're
I think it's a
overdoing
bit
it.
much.
Well, life is a sojourning in a way.
I
You know.
understand if you want to get philosophical, but
Right.
my point is that he's negatively philosophical. It is a different attitude than Abraham and Isaac, and I just think that's it. And he's drawing the contrast. He's fewer than Abraham and Isaac, also, and that's the contrast. I don't think when he says few, because obviously, like people died in childbirth back then and
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like he lived a lot longer than Rachel did.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he's trying to say that he hasn't lived a long time exactly. I think he's comparing himself to the others, I think.
Abraham dies at 175 and Isaac at 180, and he dies at 147.
Yeah.
And
So it is fewer.
Joseph goes to 110. The spans are
Yeah.
decreasing now.
But I bet we'll find when we get to Joseph's death that it will not have similar language because I don't think
No,
Joseph's attitude is the same.
no.
Yeah.
And we do have some long.
And I'm not saying he doesn't have a reason to have this attitude. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's a point of difference.
Hmm. And he does bless Pharaoh,
Yep.
and he does have this relationship, patriarchal relationship with Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Pharaoh accepts a blessing from him. So if Pharaoh, as great as he is, has a humility. He respects this older patriarch, who's also the father of Joseph, whom he greatly respects. So to get a blessing from Jacob as Pharaoh, because Pharaoh was deified in that culture,
Uh-huh.
so that shows a certain humility even on his part, on
Sure.
Pharaoh's part in a way.
Especially from a shepherd,
Right? Yeah. There
right?
you go. Yeah.
Which is one reason why the text probably points it out. But I
Yeah.
think the text wants to point out that there's just tension from the get go. This isn't just because eventually it's going to obviously really degrade. And
Yeah.
at now, if you didn't have all that, you'd be like, well, what happened? They were given all this stuff, and the Joseph had saved everybody's lives, and but you can tell it's already there's a danger in the footing just from the beginning.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I just otherwise, like I said, otherwise it really would just come from left field. All right. Anything else you want to get to before we move on?
No.
All right. So we will see you all tomorrow.